with our Democratic counterparts that we can discuss. But when it comes to our rights, our land rights, our right to keep and bear arms, our parental rights, absolutely not. We cannot compromise those. We cannot reach across the aisle on those. We have to reach out to the union and sue California back into submission to fix the republic. As far as things that I would try to work on, veteran issues are huge for me. I used to manage the Susanville Army National Guard Armory. I advised Congressman Doug LaMalfa on veterans issues. Our veterans are not taken care of in California. California would rather give health care to illegal aliens, people who are here trespassing, stealing our representation, diluting our vote. California prefers them over our veterans. And we have a lot of disabled veterans, especially homeless veterans. And the primary homeless veteran population are single mothers. And that is a travesty, and that should never happen. And if the VA is not going to fix it, we should be able to find a way to mutually work together to fix that while still trying to sue California in court to fix the republic.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you. So I'm a big supporter of the state of Jefferson, and I would really like to submit a bill very early on to separate from the state of California. Now, we all know that if I did that very early on, that it would be killed within the first 5 seconds as soon as it hit the floor, and it would fail, which is not my goal. I'm endorsed by Mark Beard. We've been friends for a long time. I really respect Mark, and I appreciate his advice over all these years. One of the little techniques that I used to do on city council when I didn't have the votes, one particular vote was to raise the sales tax. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to live within our means, and we don't need to tax the public more. I was in a 3-2 position, and I did not have enough votes. So I called the builders up, I called the realtors up, I called the chambers up, and I said, hey, put some pressure on one of these three. Let's get this thing stopped before it goes any further. And they all said the same thing. It's a done deal. They've got 3 votes. Done deal, 3 votes. Done deal, 3 votes. So group after group that I attempted to put pressure on one of these 3 to stop this thing from happening, none of them were willing to help me. So they all said it was a done deal, and I said, well, it's not a done deal until Tuesday's vote, so we have a little time. So I started taking a look at each of those council members and who supported those council members, and I saw a friend of mine who gave one of those candidates $10,000. So I called up Al, and that was a Saturday, and I said, hey Al, how much gas you buy for your trucks? And he told me, and I said, well, you're going to be spending about $40,000 more next year because the city's going to raise your sales tax, or at least attempt to. And he goes, well, who's doing that? And I said, well, these 3 are. And he said, those no good sons of bitches, who's going to do that? I'll call Dick right now, which was the guy that gave me $10,000. So the vote came on Tuesday, and all of a sudden Dick changed his mind, and we defeated that sales tax increase to 3. So by finding the right guy and putting a little pressure on him, solved the problem. And those are the same kinds of things that we have to do in Sacramento, but on a much larger scale and more numbers. So if you just simply introduce a bill very quickly, you know it's going to fail. You can't do that. You got to do your homework first. You got to massage it, work it, use every group and every leverage that you have to be able to get that bill successfully passed to represent your district. And that's the job. That's the hard part of the job. Anybody can put a bill up there for them to kill. But you take a year, you get to support, you put pressure, and not only do you get it passed in the Assembly, but you get it passed in the Senate as well and get the job done. That's what I plan on doing.
Thank you. Let's see. We will go to Joe next. Okay. By far, the biggest number of questions that I've received from the audience this evening involve taking out the Klamath dams. Hopefully you know that we did put that issue on the ballot a few years ago, and it was overwhelmingly, almost 80% of the citizens that voted said, no, we do not want those dams out. So, make us feel good. Yes or no question. Are you in favor of removing the 4 dams on the Klamath River?
No.
No. No.
Good job. Okay, this question is regarding the Klamath dams and is directed at Lane. The other 2 of you can answer this also, but we're going to let him take this one first. To clarify a statement you made this evening, do you really believe that dam removal is or was a private business decision? And do you think we can't stop dam removal because of all the powerful people involved?
So to my understanding, it was controlled by a private power company, and they had to go through regulations to update the dam to meet state maintenance. I think that the decision was that they would rather just remove the dams instead of paying that money, and that put a burden on local officials here and local individuals that really had to take that burden. I think on a state level, what we can do when I talk about removing the dams, if the dam removal is going to happen, I will still fight it for you. But if it is going to happen, let's make sure that we're getting the best possible funding we can towards that being removed. Let's get the state and federal government to come in and give money to this local community so they can adjust for the Klamath Dam removal. However, I don't think from reading the reports that there is any real scientific proof that this dam removal is going to help the environment in any way. I read something saying that it was going to increase fish population, salmon fish population. I think what's going to increase salmon fish population is not having crude fishing nets collect all of the salmon. I think there's a lot of that report that outsiders came in and did. It didn't really talk to community members about what their experience with the dam is, or what their thoughts on the dam were, or what results they've seen. I think there was a lot of inconclusive evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. So I came up a little earlier today just to visit the Klamath Dams. We got to take a look at two, Iron Gate and Camp Copco. And that really did help me a lot. Again, I've talked to Mark Beard on this issue, and we know it's very complicated and it goes back a long time. But I got more information today than I've had ever before, and it was great information. And it's not about the science. It's not about saving fish. These folks don't care about this area. This is flawed science. We know that. There is no science on this. We have science to show the dam should stay in place. They're not listening. They're not listening to you, just like they're not listening to other communities. There is a reason and financial gain for some on this project. And so when you get all down to the bottom of it, it's not about protecting the environment. The environment will be hurt. We have to fight these kinds of things with everything we got, because if we can't stop it here, they're going elsewhere. We know that. They want to remove mini dams. I think some want to remove Shasta Dam in my county. So we have to fight this. It is not acceptable. We don't want compensation for the loss of the land. We want this to remain in place. They work today. They serve a great purpose, flood control, power, electricity generation. They work and they need to stay in place, and we have to fight. We cannot accept anything less than that, because we won't. We have to fight, and we have to say no, and there is nothing else short of that. Those dams will stay as long as we stay united and fight. Thank you.
Joe, do you have a comment?
I do. Whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. Everybody knows that. Water is the most important thing for civilization. That's why they want to remove the dams. They want to drive you and us from our homes. They want to restrict our groundwater access. They want to restrict our reservoir access, so that way they can move us out of our homes. If we don't have any water, why are we going to stay and fight for that dirt? The dirt is useless without the water. They want to drive us from our homes and consolidate us into the cities so we can be chattel. It's unacceptable. As far as compensation goes, they can compensate us by building more dams, because we can have more water reservoirs. Population's growing. We need more water storage. Population's growing. We need more power production. Hydroelectric power runs all the time. It's clean. It's effective. We need to do it. Science is very simple on that. And I would do everything I can to absolutely fight that. And I think even civil disobedience is an absolutely appropriate call to take. Thank you.
To get us back on track in the correct order, Joe, you're up next. Do you agree with Megan Dolly's recent radio interview statement that removal of the dams is a federal issue?
It's only a federal issue in regards to the states cannot make private agreements or treaties or alliances with other states or foreign nations. It's absolutely not a federal issue except for managing that jurisdiction. It needs to stay. They belong to the property owners, belong within the states, but they also have to we have to keep them. There's no compromise for it, and I don't believe just simply, oh, it's just a federal issue. I don't think the issues or the jurisdictions are properly understood, since it affects the people, and it will chase out people by removing your water storage. If it chases you away, it's a local issue. It's a very local issue because it's going to affect a lot of people.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
So it's not a federal issue, and it's not surprising why Megan's not here tonight, because she probably doesn't want to answer questions like that, to be honest.
Point of order.
No, that
This
question.
is out of line.
Excuse me,
She's
Darylyn,
here.
Darylyn,
Point of
please,
order.
sit down.
Point of order.
Darylyn,
Point
please.
of order.
We are not
She is
in-
not here to defend herself.
Darylyn,
She's
Please sit down.
engaged.
please, sit down.
This is not, and it is a federal issue. It's the jurisdiction first.
Well, this is why we're here. Everybody had the right to show up tonight. This is an important county. This is a very important issue. Everybody should have been here to discuss this. That's why I took the time to come up early to talk about and to see it for my own self, to see how important it is to the residents in this area. It is not a federal issue. It's a local issue here, and we have to fight for it. To just simply say it's a federal issue and it's not a state issue, it shows that she doesn't want to talk about it. That's a fact. We should talk about things that are happening in our district. We represent District 1. That's what the job is all about, and it affects a lot of people here. And so we don't pass on these tough topics. It'd be nice to say it's a federal issue, it's not our deal, we don't have to worry about it. And that's not the case. This is a very local issue. It affects a lot of people, and we should be talking about it. The more we talk about it, the more attention it gets. In Shasta County, they know very little about this issue. We have to talk about it more. We have to talk about it more in Lassen County, in Modoc County, because they'll be the next one that comes. And so if it happens here, it'll happen there too.
Thank you. Lane?
It is a private issue. It's a local issue. It's a state issue. It's a federal issue. But right now, the most important thing right here in this room is that the constituents in this part of the county, their needs are not being met. It's the only thing that should be important right now. And as your senator, assemblyman, if this issue is the issue that you deem important, if this is the issue you want me to fight for, I will fight for it. I will work with you. I will meet with the experts here. I will talk with you about your plan to work towards fighting against this removal project. And I will 100% stand with you and fight that project. If it is going to come down, I don't want to lie to you. I don't want you to be false hopes and just say, the dam's going to stay. I don't think that's realistic. I think we can absolutely fight for it, but I don't think that's realistic. I don't think it's realistic to say it's 100% going to stay. And if it is not going to stay, then let's move to the discussions of, okay, what can we get out of this? What are you going to do to help property values? What are you going to do to help schools? What are you going to do to help water? Because if we don't have those conditions met, they're just going to steamroll through us. They're going to do whatever they want. We need to stand as a community ready to fight against this project. I absolutely agree. But we also need to be smart and talk about what we want to do if the dams are removed.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Jones, you're next. What do you know about the Klamath Basin Compact?
So I don't know all the details on the compact. It was explained to me today, but along with a lot of other important issues, a lot of details with the dam removal. And so I don't have all the details in my head, unfortunately, but it has been explained to me a little bit, and and so it's pretty complicated, and I had hours of stuff on that, but I'm afraid I don't remember a lot of it on the actual compact.
Lane?
I'm also unfamiliar with it. However, I would love to sit down with any one of you who would like to give me information on this. I will use this time, however, to talk about issues that when I worked for Senator Deans and when I came to Siskiyou County and met with the League of Local Agencies, here are some issues that they had problem with. Housing development, housing opportunities. California has this one-size-fits-all housing development process that really doesn't meet the needs of rural California. It's really easy to say that one size absolutely does not fit all. We need to have better legislation towards building housing opportunities in the rural area. When I was speaking with these lead local agency members, they said they know a lot of people that want to come to this part of the district. This district has so many great things to offer. The problem is they're having a really hard time getting construction companies to come out and build homes for them. And on top of that, all of the crazy regulations that you have to follow for housing, for building a house. It's ridiculous. We need to work with legislators to create bills and issues that will make immediate changes to all of those in California. I think rural California has been left out of the dirt for too long. Let's work towards creating bills towards helping these issues.
Thank you. Joe?
All I need to know about the compact is Congress failed to do anything about it in 2015, which makes it illegal and unconstitutional. So for anything on it to go forward, it has to go to Congress, and I would really hope Congress would not do anything about it, and I hope that our state representatives and our congressional representatives and our local representatives and everybody involved would fight and sue and sign on as plaintiffs to stop and prevent it. And as I said before, even civil disobedience. The 14th Amendment prevents the states from depriving any person from life, liberty, or property without due process. If they take your water, they're taking your property. There's no due process, it's illegal.
Thank you. Just to let you know that Siskiyou County Water Users Association is an organization that is fighting hard to save the dams. We know a lot about the Klamath Compact, so if you want to get an earful, just get a hold of us. Thank you. Okay, Lane. Illegal immigration is a big issue in our nation, with a constant back and forth, I'm sure you've heard it, between the Democrats and the Republicans. How do you see California handling this problem? And try to be a little more specific.
Well, I'll start by saying sanctuary state's unconstitutional. We are working against the federal government, and we are trying to stop them from, when there is illegal immigration, from getting these illegal immigrants deported. We are going against our federal government for some political stance that we agree on, that the state of California, the Democrats, try and believe in. I wholeheartedly think sanctuary state ends up helping no one. A lot of illegal immigrants that are coming to California under sanctuary state status don't know by doing that they are impeding on their possibility to become legal immigrants. They are breaking federal law by coming into this state. And many of them don't know that. And when they do try and reach that legal immigration process, they can't. Because they've already broke the law. They have to go back to wherever they immigrated from and redo the process completely all over again. I think something that we need to work on is bringing recognition to that issue. I think many people support legal immigration. Legal immigration. We have processes to go through that all of our founding fathers went through to get here. My parents immigrated from Sicily. They worked towards getting into the immigration process. We have these processes for a reason. We want to make sure that the immigrants that are coming to this country are the best and most hardworking citizens.
Thank you, Joe.
Title 8, Section 1324 is harboring of illegal aliens. California is in violation of that federal code. California is in a state of sedition against the Union. The Union has to put California back into its proper place. All of our states, many of us who have been involved in the State of Jefferson movement, who understand the movement, we all know that states are sovereign. We understand what the sovereignty is, but we also understand what a contract is, which is what the Constitution is. We have to use that contract and the leverage that it provides to fix the republic within California. We also have to use it to fix the republic within the Union. Illegal aliens are stealing our representation. They're diluting our vote. This assembly district is going to be geographically larger after the 2020 census. That's a huge problem. It's enormously difficult for any person to travel over 25,000 square miles. It's a great honor to be able to come out here and to speak to everybody here today, but it's not realistic to have that as your standard model. Our representatives should be confined within the borders of our counties, state senators and state assemblymen, the same way it is with Congress, with the House of Representatives and the Senate. We have to put the Republic back together if we want to solve anything about it. And I've seen what happens on the border. I spent over about 16 months there on the southwest border, working in operations with the engineers. I've been down to the fence. I've illegally entered Mexico for fun and come back. It's something I've seen, I've known. I've seen the spider hole tunnels. I personally ordered the concrete and helped watch it get filled in. We didn't know if anybody was in there. Sorry about your luck. So, my alarm. My phone is on silent. It was my alarm to take bedtime meds. But it's depleting our resources, it's diluting our representation, it's diluting our vote, it's a state of sedition, it is a war. It's not something to be taken lightly. And legal immigration is a wonderful thing. We conducted brain drain throughout the world. We've taken the best and the brightest from the world. And what's going on now? Banana republics around us. And California is turning into a banana republic, and we cannot use banana republic tactics to get things done, and we have to fix the republic in order to have integrity on these issues.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Well, what's happening in California is absolutely appalling, and it's happening in a dozen other states as well. Most people are familiar with the new Real ID and also the federal limit supply ID, and that is pure corruption. What's happening is in California, along with about 13 other states, you can go and get a California driver's license, and you do not have to prove who you are. Essentially, you can be an illegal alien, you can be a criminal, and you can get a federal limit supply driver's license. Now, with that, we know that, and in California, we're probably talking about 10 to 12 million illegal aliens being able to acquire that. It's pure corruption and it's pure fraud. Not only is it voter fraud, but it's just plain fraud, because most of these people are going to be counted in the census, and many of them are going to be voted. And in Southern California alone, that means new congressional districts, as many as 8 new congressmen they will get out of this. It's pure corruption, and 13 other states are doing the same thing. And it's appalling what's happening. It's not about legal immigration. I think we've all talked about that. We appreciate people that want to come here and be good, productive Americans and do it the right way. We encourage that. The illegal immigration problem is what we're talking about. The national media doesn't differentiate between those two, and so it gets confusing, and they try to use emotion about these poor folks coming over. But there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it, and what we're seeing in California is the wrong way, and it's costing you a lot of money, and it's costing the whole country in the way the representation is going to happen. And so it's very appalling. It's illegal. This governor, there is a movement now to remove the governor, and I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I would like nothing better to see this governor gone. This really needs to change, and it's costing us all so much. And we don't really have a great number of how many illegals. We're only estimating the numbers into the millions, and they're costing us all a lot of money. And my grandparents were immigrants, and they came over here. They worked hard. They raised their families. They did it the right way. And we appreciate those things, and we support those things. But what we're seeing today is something very different. But it's fraud, and we have to fight against it. And I think we're all equally in agreement that it needs to stop in California and elsewhere.
Thank you. Joe, you're next. Our Assemblyman Brian Dolly signed a letter on May 20th of this year to Governor Newsom in support of funding for rural community hospitals in the amount of $20 million. And there was more to that, but to assist with the expansion of Medi-Cal to undocumented young people up to age 25. Would you have signed that letter?
Absolutely not. I read the letter. Also, who's on there was Assemblyman James Gallagher, who also promised that he would submit a bill to form the state of Jefferson when he was a county supervisor, which he turned his back on. And for anybody who's been involved in the Jefferson movement, they know my name, they know who I am, they know I've worked on the Jefferson Constitution, and I would absolutely submit that as the first thing because the promise I made to Mark Barrett 5 years ago. And the reason you do it is you have to move the Citizens for Fair Representation lawsuit forward. It's stalled. It needs an elected representative behind it. We cannot have our elected representatives supporting seditious behavior. And unfortunately, it's not a very nice thing to say, because it's a hard thing to say. Supporting illegal aliens, people who are here criminally trespassing, supporting our resources going to them is fraud. It is criminal negligence. It's a perjure of your oath of office. I can't believe that he did that. I can because I've seen it. But there's no way that I would ever do anything like that because I have to keep an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies foreign and domestic.
Yeah, I wouldn't have signed that, and I know the motivation behind it because certainly rural hospitals here in District 1 need the money, and so there was great pressure to be able to sign that. The problem is you can't because of this added caveat of helping illegal aliens, and it's illegal. It's simply illegal, and Brian made that decision, and he uses that in his speeches that he's helped rural hospitals in his region, which is true. But there comes to a part where there's also an illegal part to that, and I could not have signed that. What I would have rather, if I was in that position, is fought hard to get that representation for the rural hospitals without supporting the illegal aliens, and that would have been the right way to attack it, and I would have certainly supported that.
With the Republican Party being in the super minority, there tends to be a problem with some California legislators that they start to side a bit too much with Democrats, and then it becomes a challenge being able to identify the difference between them and Democrats. So at the end of the day, legislators in the California Party, at the end of the day, we are Republicans, and we need to fight for Republican core beliefs. One of those things were rural community hospitals. I've gotten the opportunity to tour rural community hospitals and see, yes, we do need better funding for these areas. Rural California in general needs more infrastructure and development, but not at the cost of that. Not at the cost of breaking state law to do so. We shouldn't be funding healthcare for illegal immigrants when we have a problem with homelessness right here, with Californians suffering right here, with mental health. We need to use that funding to go to helping individuals from this state, born in this state, who actually need it first.
Thank you. Who's next? Yeah, that's what I thought. Mr. Jones, our children have become pincushions with a number of vaccinations recommended by the time they're, 10 years old? SB 276 is a bill that requires the Department of Public Health to develop a statewide standardized medical exemption request form for immunization, which your children's family doctor must fill out and turn into the Department of Health. Some state bureaucrat will decide if your child's medical reactions to immunization warrants an exemption from vaccinations. Do you believe in mandatory vaccinations, and why?
So I don't. I believe that's the parents' rights. And, there is a lot of science out there. And, of course, I was immunized when I was young, but not in fact, to even go into public school, you had to have those shots. And I think that's really a choice that each parent has to make. And I believe it's their right and their choice to be able to do that. There is some pretty good mounting evidence that for some children, once they're immunized, that some pretty bad health effects occurred thereafter. And that is why the parents need to choose that. So I would be open for that type of legislation where parents get to choose what medications that their children and immunizations that they get, and if they want to do them, that's fine, and if they don't, they should not be forced to do so.
Thank you.
I believe in terms of mandatory vaccinations when it comes to a public environment like a public school setting. I think we do need to have mandatory vaccinations for the students who attend public schools. When you put a student in that environment, a child in that environment, you are putting them into the safety of the state, into the safety of your county. And if something is to happen because of a child getting sick and not having vaccinations, that affects the entire public school system. I think, however, there is room for legislation for those students who are homeschooled. I think there's opportunities for parents at that point to decide what they want to do with their children. You should have the right to be able to decide healthcare options for your child. And if you are putting them through homeschooling, it's not going to affect anyone. They're going to be homeschooled right there. It's the parents' decision, it's the parents' responsibility. And at that point, yes, I'd be open to ideas of legislation that would not make it mandatory to do vaccinations.
Thank you, Joe.
Absolutely not. Mandatory vaccinations is a violation of the 14th Amendment. That is a violation of your liberty. Your right to choose what you do with your own body. You can't, the government has no jurisdiction over that. It's illegal. As far as vaccines go in general, I support the science, but I don't trust Big Pharma. A lot of people don't trust Big Pharma as far as the pills that they push, but a lot of people also neglect that there's a vaccine trust fund that's been around since the 80s that gives vaccine manufacturers immunity from being sued. That's a huge problem. I cannot trust anybody who does not have the requirement to prove the efficacy of their product through clinical testing to prove that it is safe for human consumption. They don't have to do that. I've been vaccinated for all sorts of stuff. I've been in the military. I've had probably my Hep A and Hep B shots like 20 times because my records got lost, so I had to get them again. I've had a recurring issue with my left armpit for the last 15 years when I received cowpox, which is the smallpox vaccine. I got that because I went to Egypt, which was an exposure area. You vaccinate properly for risk. It's a risk management tool. Making it mandatory, you can't do it. You can't mitigate every single risk. You cannot damage a child's fragile immune system. Mother Nature knows best. The children have to have a fully developed immune system before you start putting foreign objects and foreign chemicals into their bodies. Breast milk is an amazing thing. Only relying on formula saying science is better for that, that's caused devastating results in Africa for a bunch of children who are malnourished because they're not getting breast milk because they were peddled that the formula was better. So, science works, yes. Manufacturers, they adulterate, they're looking out for the bottom line. Mandatory laws, all that does is just force us to participate into their product scheme and to steal our money and for them to get really rich. So I absolutely do not support that for many reasons.
Thank you.